thousands, millions of young lives to be spilt, only 20 years after last time. God can't let it happen.
Dearest Mum, I'm sure I'm fed up. I feel sick. I can't eat. My heart is in my mouth.
We soon learned that tomorrow is never. Now is what matters.
Hitler knows that he will have to break us in this island or lose the war.
This early colour film of the Hampshire Regiment in camp at Seaford, Sussex, was taken in August 1934. Some are veterans of the First World War, a war that cost 750,000 British lives. The soldiers and their families were promised a land fit for heroes. But for many, it never happened. In parts of the country, 1 man in 4 is unemployed. Joan Pallas is a mother of 5 in Sunderland.
On the whole, my husband's worked about 1 year out of 12 and a half. His face was lovely when I married him, but now he's skin and bone. He fell out of work about 4 months after we were married, so I've hardly known what a week's wage was. But I have to struggle on for the sake of the children, to send them clean to school. We've only 1 lavatory in the yard between 3 families. I think every family ought to have its own lavatory. But I'm not blaming my husband. I wonder who I should blame.
Every class in Britain had been devastated by the First World War. Now, extremism and the rise of Hitler's Germany are talking points at society dinner parties. The diary of journalist Philip Gibbs.
The party dined in a private room. We were a middle-aged crowd. Presently, we began talking about Germany. I find that conversation at dinner tables drifts inevitably to Germany and the Germans. Personally, I like the Germans, said the lady at my left elbow. I believe Hitler means peace when he says peace. Why don't we take him at his word? After all, the Germans are the best organized people in Europe.
July 1938, Warrington, Lancashire. A patriotic welcome for King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. But there is fear of war. Hitler has already annexed Austria and now has his sights on Czechoslovakia. Writing in her diary, Moira Charlton.
Hitler means war. How can one man plunge Europe into war? Thousands, millions of young lives to be spilt, and this only 20 years after last time. It can't be. God can't let it happen.
Britain's Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, tries appeasing Hitler. Chamberlain is terrified of war.
How horrible, fantastic, incredible it is that we should be digging trenches and trying on gas masks here because of a quarrel in a faraway country between people of whom we know nothing.
As a precaution, orders were issued this afternoon calling up officers and men of the anti-aircraft units of the Territorial Army. Also, as a precaution, officers and men of the Royal Air Force have been recalled from leave.
Herr Hitler has agreed to postpone mobilization for 24 hours.
The Home Office handbook giving ARP advice will be delivered in every house in the country tomorrow. Some authorities have issued appeals for ARP workers.
From Warwickshire, Alison Christopher writes to her fiancé Tom in the Royal Artillery in India.
September 29th, 1938. I've hardly seen a smile on any face for days. I've seen people age 10 years. Everyone is digging holes rabbit fashion, and what has been for so long an almost amusing improbability has suddenly become an actual dark shadow over England. War, war, war. I'm tired of the word. And of evacuation and gas masks and crisis and ultimatum. It will soon be time for the news. I feel quite tense with expectancy.
Since midnight last night, the four-power agreement has been signed, Czechoslovakia has accepted it, and Mr. Chamberlain has again met Herr Hitler and signed with him a joint declaration of non-aggression and consultation.
When Chamberlain yields to Hitler's demands for part of Czechoslovakia, much of Britain breathes a sigh of relief. But it doesn't last.
Children, have you ever met the bogeyman before? No, of course you haven't, for you're much too good, I'm sure. Don't you?
The preparations for war continue. It is feared that civilians will be the targets.
So I'll tell you what to do. Hush, hush, hush. Here comes the bogeyman. Don't let him come too close to you. He'll catch you if he can. Just pretend that you're a crocodile, and you will find that bogeyman will run away a mile.
The real terror is that the Germans will use gas. 38 million gas masks have been issued.
Say buzz, buzz, just like the wasp that stings. Bogeyman will think you are an elephant with wings. Hush, 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 here comes the bogeyman.
Across the country, people take lessons in air raid precautions. Nurse Kate Phipps and trainee warden Stephen Woodcock.
The warden staged a practice incident. It was good fun and proved instructive. 14 casualties were distributed about, with myself labelled as unwounded. Longman was put in charge. A determined friend of ours, Miss Smythe, was labelled hysterical, and others were labelled with more or less serious injuries, one being supposed to have got her false teeth stuck in her throat.
We are having instruction on coping with incendiary bombs. Stirrup pump drill. When extinguishing fire on a small scale, aim water at the heart of the fire. We also crawl about, dragging supposedly unconscious patients along the floor. Always drag a person by the shoulders, not by the feet.
When the fun began, the hysterical Miss Smythe made such a hullabaloo that passers-by inquired anxiously what was wrong. Longman dealt with her eventually, and also with her companion, Miss Orpen, who was supposed to have swallowed her false teeth. His treatment for this was to lay her on her face and shake her head about, which made her feel so sick that she had to be taken into the garden and attended to.
Great arguments as to where wounded gas casualties are to be treated. Does one treat wounds first or gas? At what point are they removed from contaminated stretchers? Are contaminated dead to be decontaminated or kept separate from the clean corpses? If it wasn't so serious, it would be ludicrous.
By September 1939, Hitler has seized the rest of Czechoslovakia and made a secret pact with Stalin. Britain and France promised to defend Poland. On September the 3rd, Chamberlain broadcast to the nation.
This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland. A state of war, I have to tell you, would exist between us, that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
All cinemas, theatres, and other places of entertainment are to be closed immediately until further notice.
In the evening, Moira Carlton listens to the King's broadcast.
For the second time in the lives of most of us, we are at war.
He spoke slowly, with his slight hesitation, but forcefully.
And war can no longer be confined to the battlefield.
Outside the window, the leaves of our sycamore trees were gold against a pale blue sky. It was impossible to believe that we were at war. September the 3rd, 1939. I suppose history will remember it. Anyhow, thank heaven the suspense is over.
With God's help, we shall prevail.
Everyone between the ages of 18 and 41 is liable for conscription. By the year's end, over 1.5 million men are in uniform. Families watch their loved ones go off to war. Nella Last is in the Women's Voluntary Service in Barrow-in-Furness. Her son Cliff is 20.
The last days of having my little boy, it's dreadful to think of him having to kill boys like himself, to hurt and be hurt. For we who remember the agony of the last war, it all comes back with a rush. The boys who set off so gaily and lightly and didn't come back, I could have screamed out loud.
Albert Gaskin is a bugler in the King's Shropshire Light Infantry. He is 23.
Soon the decks were crowded with khaki-clad soldiers, some very silent, wondering perhaps the same as I. Would this be the same as Dad's war? Fixed bayonets, over the top, barbed wire, mud and blood. As the troop ships nosed their way towards the channel, a friend of mine had brought along his long silver trumpet, and he stood at the bows of the ship and played Auld Lang Syne. Looking around me on the deck, I watched some of the troops for their reaction, and like me, many were gulping, and some were weeping, as I was, unashamedly.
As Adolf Hitler strides into Northern Europe, Oswald Mosley and his British fascists are on the march in London. It is May 1940, 8 months into the war. For years, Mosley has been calling for peace with Germany and for his legions of black shirts to create a new Britain.
Brother black shirts, my comrades in struggle, we are fighting for nothing less than a revolution in the spirit of our people. We must be worthy of our mission. The black shirts are those who are summoned to lead the people to a new and a higher civilization.
The British Union of Fascists have adopted Nazi symbolism, their blood-red banners, and even their horsed vessel song. An 18-year-old shop assistant from Ipswich.
To my mind, it is the Jews who have caused this war. If they had no vast sums invested in Poland, Britain would not have given that country a guarantee. They crippled Germany years ago. They will cripple anyone. I like them less than the Germans.
Just 18 days after this rally, Oswald Mosley is arrested and interned. The British Union of Fascists outlawed.
It is the BBC Home Service. The German army invaded Holland and Belgium early this morning by land and by landings from parachutes.
Without warning or excuse, Hitler added another to the horrible crimes which already disgrace his name.
The BEF are fighting a desperate battle in the northern zone of the Western Front.
We met a straggling little party of Belgians. Their few pathetic belongings strapped on their back or carried in cheap suitcases in their hands.
The enemy troops have been continuously attacked by medium and heavy bombers. One of our bombers has failed to return.
On May the 10th, 1940, Chamberlain broadcasts to the nation.
I sought an audience of the King this evening, and tendered to him my resignation, which His Majesty has been pleased to accept.
Now Britain has a new Prime Minister, Winston Churchill.
But now one bond unites us all, to wage war until victory is won, and never to surrender ourselves to servitude and shame, whatever the cost and the agony may be.
Churchill believes he is walking with destiny. On a weekend visit to Chequers, the diary and private film of Australia's Prime Minister, Robert Menzies, give a vivid insight to Britain's war leader.
The entrance drive and circle have been grassed over. They were too much of a landmark from the air, and the house is closely guarded. I meet once more Mrs. Churchill, who is in good form and prepared to disagree with the great man. And Mary Churchill, aged 17, the freshest and best-looking young woman I've seen in years. This really is the most amazing family. Winston enters, wearing what is called a siren suit, a dull blue woolen overall with a zip fastener down the front. Winston's war cabinet contained men who were by no means commonplace. Amongst others, there were Attlee, wise, practical, undemonstrative, a quiet man of character. Anthony Eden, a really great Foreign Secretary. Ernest Bevin, a sturdy British Union leader who never failed to speak his mind. And Herbert Morrison, a superb cockney with a sort of cockatoo's crest of unruly hair, a good administrator and the embodiment of London spirit. They were a great group, but nobody doubted who was in charge. Once the war was on, Winston had a passion for it. He thought of nothing else. He sought no leisure time for himself and could not understand why other people should want it. There is no defeat in his heart.
But within 3 weeks of Churchill coming to power, more than 300,000 British and French troops have to be evacuated from the beaches of Dunkirk.
Suddenly, the scene is cleared. A miracle of deliverance, achieved by valor, is manifest to us all. We must be very careful not to assign to this deliverance the attributes of a victory. Wars are not won by evacuations.
In the weeks that follow, Churchill fights to lift the morale of the nation.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Hitler knows that he will have to break us in this island or lose the war. If we can stand up to him, all Europe may be freed, and the life of the world may move forward into broad, sunlit upland. And now it has come to us to stand alone in the breach and face the worst that the tyrant's might and enmity can do. So bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its commonwealths last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour.
In expectation of a German invasion, Britain begins to fortify itself. Road signs are removed to confuse the enemy. The ringing of church bells is banned.
Why do you whisper green grass?
From now on, the bells will only be sounded to give warning of an invasion.
Whispering grass.
Rumours echo around the country. Mary Bloomfield is in Coventry.
News has been coming in of parachutists dressed as clergymen landing in Norway. Women are particularly afraid, as we hear that if you're young and healthy, you might be shipped to Germany to a baby farm to be mated to Germans. We've all decided we ought to have a pile of hand grenades in the bedroom near the windows, in case the Germans and their tanks come up our street.
In London, Gladys Cox.
As we met our neighbour from number 2, Mrs. Samuels, on her way back from canteen work, she said she'd heard from 3 different sources that Hitler's secret weapon was a flying tank.
Fearful of civilian casualties, the authorities have evacuated almost 2 million children to the countryside. Billeted in Nottinghamshire are Sybil and Layla Rothstein from Worthing. Sybil is 11, Layla just 6.
Dear Mummy and Daddy, we've had a lot of bother about Layla's schooling. One morning, Layla was homesick, and I didn't know how to comfort her. I asked her what would happen if all the soldiers cried and we never won the war. That didn't appeal to her, so I had to think of something else. I'm sure you will enjoy Layla's very amusing letter. Much love, Sybil.
Dear Mummy and Daddy, I've been a good girl last week. I'm very sorry that I've been a naughty girl. I've got a husband and his name is Kenneth Farrow. When I come home, do you think there'll be any room for my husband? When I'm ready to marry Kenneth, he'll be 27 and I'll be 20. Kenneth is a nice boy. Love to all, Layla.
5, 6, my heart does tricks as a picture all your charms. 7, 8.
Not all evacuated children are happy in their new accommodation.
Dear Mum and Dad, if it's the last earthly thing I do, I am coming home Christmas. You made promise after promise about that. You're okay. I don't see why I shouldn't be. I'll be more use in London than down here. All I'm being is a blinking nuisance to Cornwall and the government.
They had a cage which used to have birds in. In the morning the birds were let out and we were put in with a bottle of water and some bread. We would stay there all day.
She had a horsewhip with a crook handle and about 6 inches of leather on the end. She walloped me all over. I had bruises right down to my ankles. All my clothes were bleeding.
You think we're settled down here, don't you? Sometimes I feel like cutting my throat. Thank goodness I'm nearly 14 now. I'll be glad when I'm 15, so this will all be just history.
Summer 1940. Just 23 miles across the Channel, Hitler's troops are poised, ready to strike at Britain. If the invasion comes, the British people are to be defended by the Home Guard. Colonel Andrew Elliot issues his own guidelines in a pamphlet, Shooting to Kill.
In the invasion of Britain, there will be no quarter given. It will be you or the other fellow. For the taking of prisoners will probably be out of the question for both sides. The few 5th columnists will be active, so watch for them. Make sure that everyone hides his week's supply of food. Burying it in the vegetable garden is probably the safest place until the enemy has passed. A service rifle will kill anything from a Nazi to an elephant. And provided the Home Guard get blood on every bullet, or even every second bullet, things will be very unpleasant for the Nazis. The experienced and practiced shot should have no difficulty in bagging 5 Nazis in a charge as short as 50 yards. Pick out your enemy and shoot him. Dozens of tricks, all very demoralizing for the enemy, can be devised with just a little hard thinking. The average Britisher's brain works quicker than the average German's, which is a telling factor.
In the skies over southern England, the Royal Air Force holds firm. The Battle of Britain.
The gratitude of every home in our island and in our empire goes out to the British airmen who, undaunted by odds, are turning the tide of the World War by their prowess and by their devotion. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
Hitler has lost the Battle of Britain by day. He now sends his bombers to attack Britain's cities and the British people by night. Gladys Cox and her husband Ralph live in Lymington Mansions, North London.
3 alerts so far. Most of the night spent in the cellar. Anti-aircraft guns booming all night. There was the glow in the sky of a fire, and to the south and southeast, shrapnel bursting like winking stars in the clear atmosphere. After the first all clear this morning, I hurried out to do the weekend shopping. I greeted Mr. Palmer at the fishmonger's with, "Well, we're still alive." "And kicking," he added, smiling broadly.
Here is the news, and this is Alvar Liddell reading it. Today was the most costly for the German Air Force for nearly a month.
Ralph ran into Mr. Breville Smith, who hailed him in friendly fashion. People we have known for years by sight and have passed without recognition have suddenly become very friendly. It seems to require a war to break down English reserve.
That certain night, the night we met, there was magic abroad in the air. There were angels dining at the Ritz, and a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square.
The next raid brings disaster for Gladys and Ralph Cox.
The bottom of our world has dropped out. I'm so dazed, so tired, so numb. I can hardly think, much less write. Ralph and I went along to the flat, my neat and orderly home. a scene of indescribable desolation. Our marriage certificate, insurance policy, all my letters. Not even the ashes remained. Under my bed, my trinket box was lying open, its contents scattered over the wet carpet. Everything of the least value removed. All the work of looters.
Facing the full horror of the Blitz, the men of the Heavy Rescue Service. East End bricklayer Bill Regan.
Not much sleep tonight. At daylight, we found our job in Dunkeld Street, off Abbots Road. That was quite a mess. Little hope of finding survivors. We gathered 3 bushel baskets of remains. I picked up 2 left feet. One of the men saw a body perched on the rooftop. Nobby Clark climbed up and recovered it. It was badly mutilated. It was some time before we were even able to identify it as female. Some of the men were feeling queasy, so rum was dished out. I was TT, so I gave mine away. Eventually, we found enough evidence to account for 3 people. We are now beginning to notice the smell, as if everything is becoming unclean. We're all wandering around in small groups, feeling useless, wondering what tomorrow would bring. We soon learned that tomorrow is never. Now is what matters.
In the first 9 months of bombing, 40,000 people have been killed. But the deaths are only a tenth of those expected. Despite the devastation, neither society nor morale has collapsed. In June 1941, Hitler attacks the Soviet Union. In Britain, fears of invasion subside. But overseas, battles are still being lost. (1941). Britain is losing the Battle of the Atlantic. In just 3 months, German planes and submarines have sunk more than 300 merchant ships. The situation is so bad that Churchill orders the figures to be kept secret. Morale at sea is low. William Crawford is just 17 years old. From HMS Hood, he writes to his mother in Edinburgh almost every day.
Dearest Mum, I'm writing again today just because it makes me feel nearer to home. I know it's wrong to say, but I'm sure I'm fed up. I feel kind of sick. I can't eat and my heart's in my mouth. We struck bad weather today. Talk about waves as big as houses, they're crashing over our bows. Even as I write this, we're heaving, and I can hear the waves smashing on the forecastle. The last leave was the happiest I've ever spent. Sitting around the fire talking, with a good dinner beneath my belt. Och, Mother, that I did not have to leave all those things behind. I wonder if it would do any good, Mum, if you wrote to the Admiralty and asked them if there's no chance of me getting a shore job at Rosyth. You know, tell them you've got 2 sons away and that. Be sure to tell them my age. If only I could get off the ship, it would not be so bad. Well, cheerio, Mum. My very best of love to you all. Bill.
Telegram to Mrs. Elsie Crawford, Longston Crescent, Edinburgh, from the Commodore Naval Barracks, Portsmouth, 28th May 1941. Regret to report that your son, William McFarlane Crawford, boy 2nd class, is missing.
HMS Hood has been sunk by the German battleship Bismarck. 1,421 crew members are killed. There are only 3 survivors. William Crawford is not one of them. (1942) and Britain is still suffering. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941 has brought America into the war. But it doesn't stop the defeats.
This morning's news of Japan's aggression is of successful countermeasures against the invasion of Malaya. There have also been reports of enemy attacks on Thailand and Hong Kong. At Shanghai, the Japanese have sunk the British gunboat Petrel.
What kind of a people do they think we are? Is it possible they do not realize that we shall never cease to persevere against them until they have been taught a lesson which they and the world will never forget?
A social worker from Birmingham, Via Hodgson.
The news is awful. We seem to be at bay on all sides. I hate the word Benghazi. Wretched place. Singapore has fallen to the Japanese. Everyone is mighty uneasy, and no one knows exactly what to do. I bought a spare hot water bottle in the week. They say we shall not be able to buy any for years, so I thought I'd better have one in store until we get Malaya back.
German aircraft carried out a number of attacks on Great Britain last night. The raids, which lasted for several hours, were scattered over many parts of the country, and enemy aircraft have been reported over towns on the south coast, the west of England, the North Midlands and the North West, as well as over the London area.
After 2 years, the people's spirit has been tested in every corner of the country. Gladys Hollingsworth.
The city of Coventry smashed to destruction on one single night. Can anyone imagine such a thriving industrial centre and 10 hours later a graveyard and rubbish heap?
Hetty Spear.
You can imagine what Bristol is like. It's just hell. There is nothing left of Castle Street, one side of Queen's Road, all of Park Street. I don't know if we shall get another, but if we do, there won't be much to hurt. Only people.
Bridget Hubbard.
Our beloved Bath had it again. It makes me rage. Pray for Mrs. Wilson in her little house. It is like a nightmare. They have destroyed a dream. Oh, it's pitiful.
The war on the home front is becoming increasingly hard. Everything seems to be rationed, and there's always a queue. Helena Mott is 70 years old. She lives with her sister in Teddington.
Lord Woolton is curtailing the meat ration. He says we can become more vegetable eaters. At least vegetarians used to have eggs, cheese and milk and other things. But with all these cut away, how is the health of the nation going to be maintained? I would like to visit Woolton's dinner table twice a week and see if what was sauce for the goose was sauce for the gander.
I'm stepping out with a
Olive Cousins is a teacher. She writes regularly to her fiancé, Leslie, an army stretcher bearer.
I think the greatest blow is the rationing of corsets and bras. To some poor women, they are an absolute necessity. You know, you men are lucky. All our pleasures are being taken from us. Our makeup, our clothes and silk stockings, everything that makes a woman's life worth living.
The black market is thriving. So too are the profiteers. A factory worker in Chester.
There's a fellow at our works who brings in lots of stuff. Everything you can think of. Pork, fresh eggs, butter. And how much he makes, I couldn't tell you. He takes a day off work to get the stuff too. The cheek of it. And if the foreman comes along, he just says, like a bit of pork, eh? And the foreman's in like everybody else. And the manager too. I don't think it's right at all.
In June 1942, Britain loses its North African fortress at Tobruk. After 2 years of military defeats, people are even doubting Churchill. It is Britain's darkest hour. Canteen worker Nella Last from Barrow-in-Furness.
Nearly 3 years of war. If only mothers could think that their poor boys had died usefully, with a purpose. It's shocking.
But from defeat, a victory. At last. Operation Torch. On November the 8th, 1942, British and American forces had landed in Algeria and Morocco. Just 4 days earlier, news had been broadcast of the Allied victory at El Alamein.
This is Bruce Belfridge. Here's some excellent news in the form of a communique from GHQ Carter. The Axis forces in the Western Desert, after 12 days and nights of ceaseless attacks by our land and air forces, are now in full retreat.
Moira Charlton had heard the announcement at home in Britain.
Montgomery and the 8th Army seem to have done the trick. It's as if the tide has turned. Rommel is retreating. It must be hell for the Germans, and I must say I'm glad of it. It's terrific. Dad was so excited at breakfast that he consumed the whole of his butter ration on 2 bits of toast.
In the Algerian harbour town of Bonn, Peter Royal lands with the 17th Field Regiment Royal Artillery.
Dearest Mum, things are going well at the moment, although the Hun is fighting fiercely. We've had a few raids by Stukas at Bonn. My God, was I frightened. This was the first time I'd been bombed, the nearest being 50 yards. It has been a hell of a strain on us, and some of the men have cracked up. I'm afraid my nerves are in rather a poor state. I never thought I would see men blown to pieces.
Across the world, British troops keep in touch with their families through the broadcasts of a young singer, Vera Lynn.
This letter of mine is getting to be a sort of rendezvous, where husbands and wives, torn apart by war, can be brought together by music.
Night and day, you are the one.
British and American troops force the Germans into retreat. Peter Royal prepares to attack their Panzer tanks.
The Boche held the hills, and our guns were just north of the village. At 9 a.m., about 35 tanks came sailing down the valley. We took him very much by surprise and knocked out about 19 tanks for the loss of one gun. We had a few casualties. Ray Oddie killed, and Bill Auld wounded in the face. It really is a bloody show, all this. We'll send you a cable from Tunis. Tons of love. Your loving and devoted son, Peter.
And that's all my news and music. You'll hear from me again next week. Good night, boys. Sincerely yours, Vera Lynn. We'll meet again.
It will be 5 months before the Allies reach Tunis, but victory in North Africa is secure. The good news sweeps across Britain. Edith Bass from Newcastle writes to a friend in the United States.
The news every day is so marvellous. Do you know you could feel the high spirits in the air when your lads and ours landed in North Africa? Fed upness just vanished. Oh, if only I could tell you how everybody over here was just aching for the Allies to go in and win something for a change. Now everybody's got a new lease of enthusiasm. Mother's got a flag all ready for Victory Day. Won't there be some fun when it does come?
Britain has survived its darkest hour. All over the country, church bells ring out, not to warn of an invasion, but to celebrate.
We have a new experience. We have victory. A remarkable and definite victory. A bright gleam has caught the helmets of our soldiers and warmed and cheered all our hearts. Ah, this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning.